Okay.
We might have,
Okay.
we might have to introduce Gordon.
Hi, Gordon. Where's Gordon? I just see his bum.
No, that's actually his head.
Oh, is it?
There's
Yeah.
Gordon. Looking up, he's picked up.
Hi, Gordon.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Gordon. He's
You're on the call.
You're on the call, Gordon. Okay. Good
Okay.
puppy.
So, Miss Leanne Scott,
Yes, Miss Jen Stewart.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here. Well,
Um,
3 days,
yeah.
but we did it. Come here, Gordon. Come on. Settle. Good puppy.
So I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Jen Stewart from beautiful Chilliwack, BC, and I'm with Leanne Scott in beautiful Asuyas, BC.
Yes.
And you're an Anat Baniel method practitioner.
I am. Yes.
Just like me.
Just like you.
And you have a beautiful center in Asuyas.
Yes, I do. Very, very lucky.
Right on the lake.
Right on the lake. Overlooking the lake.
With an amazing hotel half a block away.
Absolutely. Who has just been really, really, really helpful in terms of they're giving me what we call move therapies discount to any of my to any of my families who come and wish to stay in Asuyas to get an ABM intensive. They can stay at a discounted rate at the Watermark, which is beautiful because, like you said, it's probably 50 meters away, so obviously walking distance, and also overlooking the lake with a beautiful beach and a beautiful pool. So when the kidlets and the family are not actually in the intensive, they can just waddle back the 50 meters and go back and play on the beach. So
it's amazing. We'll actually have to do an interview the next time I'm down overlooking the lake.
Overlooking the actual lake, and sort of show you what, because it really is tremendous. It's we're talking a lot about trying to incorporate more hotels and things like that, so we can have a really enjoyable and celebratory time for families to come, but at the same time, very convenient. Grocery store is right there. Liquor store is right there. Everything's in walking distance. They don't even have to get a car if they fly in.
It's the best little town. Asuyas is so great. It is. Everything's within walking distance. And you're there.
And we're there. And Gordon is there. Gordon's going to make a big plug in this show.
Yeah. Let's see Gordon again. Where is he?
Oh, there he is. Can you see him?
Yeah. Yeah. There he is. Little mop.
Little mop.
Little mop. Okay. So you are an Anat Baniel method of NeuroMovement practitioner because I'm going to assume here, because of your son.
Yes. My lovely little son. So I have a son. His name is Callum, and he is 7 years old now. No diagnosis, special needs little boy, and we've been when I gave birth to Callum, and that we noticed that there might be some issues and longer term running issues, and then we found out about ABM. We decided, after about a year of taking lessons with our Saskatoon practitioner, because at that point we lived in Regina, Saskatchewan, we saw Dan Oliette in Saskatoon, whom we love. Hi, Dan. And it was pretty convenient considering it was only 3 hours away, but it was an event. Every month we jumped in the car, and for about a week we would go up to Saskatoon. We'd stayed with friends, Michelle and David Lane, who were wonderful who lets friends come every 3 weeks for a week and stay in their home. It was tremendous. But after about 4 or 5 months even, Dan began to chat with us about, my husband Dale Fuhr and I, about one of us taking the training to become a practitioner ourselves, because for the biggest reason is there wasn't a practitioner in Regina, in the south part of the province. So long story short, we did. We decided that it would be myself that would take the training, began it, and I hate to say this because it sounds a little bit more morbid, but we sort of thought that the more often that we could get ABM hands on Callum, the better it would be. So we still would go up and did go up to see Dan, even when I was in the training, even once I had graduated. But it's just a different story when you can work on a daily basis with your child and integrate the 9 essentials of ABM and the whole concept and methodology, for lack of a better word, of ABM in everyday circumstances.
Yeah.
And it really, really helps. So off I became a practitioner.
So here you are. Yay.
Yes. Yay. And then we left and moved to Missouri.
My advantage. So I'm glad you're in
my advantage as well, because we use each other's advantage of being ABM practitioners often, and that's something we should. I don't know if you've spoken to on your website, or if that's something we should speak to.
We should. Maybe another segment. Hey.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have many running ones with Leanne Scott. You'll be my regular.
Well, and so will you once I begin this, which is very soon. So prepare yourself.
Okay, so take me back. Well, now that you're an accomplished ABM practitioner and you've worked with lots of various ages, and there's in Asus you have quite the retirement
demographic.
Large demographic. So you've seen kids and all that. And you've had personal experience with your child. So if you go back to the time of diagnosis, just to keep it simple, what would be the most, impactful thing that you could have told yourself back then about, like, what do you wish you would have known at the time of diagnosis that you found out through your training and
through my training? And well, I have to say right off, and I can say this because I just finished an intensive with a young little 4-year-old boy here in Asus, diagnosed with autism. That's his full diagnosis. And it's so interesting because he can do things that my son Callum cannot do, and vice versa. But I did notice right away in working with him how do I say this? Because he can do certain things, I think to myself, what if I was a practitioner right off the get-go with Callum's birth? What would I have done? What could I have started doing with him immediately? And a lot of the things that I did notice being specific were to do with very everyday, like I said earlier, very everyday things like diaper changing. Just lying Callum down to get him to do a diaper change. There was a lot of me lying Callum straight backwards like this to lie down, which we know now as an ABM practitioner is a terrible way to lie down a child, versus putting the hand and the elbow and then shoulder and then head and lying him down on his side, which is what typical children do. And I noticed with this little boy right away, but we didn't do for probably, I don't know, we started ABM with Callum, if memory serves, around 14, 15 months. Mm-hmm. So that's a long time, many diaper changes, many times of lying him down incorrectly. Mm-hmm. And so that would have been definitely one thing that I would have, it sounds really basic and really simple, but being lied down improperly day after day after day after day after day, time after time, I think it would have been very impactful for him to have that knowledge right away to begin with. And then secondly, off the top of my head, I would say the use of the 9 essentials. And that isn't even something that we'd have to take the training to get. Even just reading Anat's book, Kids Beyond Limits, right away as soon as he was born. In terms of using the 9 essentials, slowing way down with Callum. Because I even notice now, if I ask Callum to do something and I don't just wait 10, 15, 20 seconds after the question, if I do, he'll respond. But if I didn't do that wait, if I didn't go slow and I asked him and then was like, okay, never mind, I guess you aren't hungry, or maybe you do need water, and shoved it in his mouth. The slow is a big key. He responds. It just takes him a little bit of time. So something like that. Also, flexible goals. because a big one with us, as we all know, is we just want our children, if they can't walk, to stand. And walk now.
Yeah.
Look, you're 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get up.
Yeah.
Forcing that issue, which, Callum hadn't even rolled over onto his belly from back to belly by 2. So standing him, not that we did a lot of it, but there were times absolutely that we put him in standing, and it was so obvious. His body would just wildly react. He'd pull his feet up under his bum. He'd begin to shake. It was so obvious he wasn't ready, but knowing what I know now and knowing what I'd read from the book, he just wasn't ready. And it's completely inappropriate, in my opinion now, to do that to a child. And who knows what we did, how far we set him back, who knows, whatever it is. But so that would have been a biggie. Also movement with attention. And you do it very often when you work with Callum as his practitioner. A lot of, putting in again, right back to the diapering stage. He's laying on his back and his feet are in the air, and really getting him to pay attention, moving his individual toes until he really clicks in and he starts really looking at them. And as soon as he does that, all of a sudden he knows, he grabs his feet every time now.
Yeah.
Whereas, for typical people, that's like so typical. Well, my kid grabbed his toes and put them right in his mouth as a baby, but Callum never did any of that. So that, his feet are being mapped into his brain because he actually knows they exist. They're there, and he's now grabbing them and tasting them and smelling, and they're becoming part of him. And so little things like that, or they're not little things. Let me correct myself. They're huge things. Mm-hmm. But they're little in the sense of they would have been so easy to do had I known. And so those are some of the, the top few that jump off my head of what I would have done differently had I had the experience and the knowledge and the know-how the first few years of Callum's life.
Yeah. Very, very well said. I know there's a big long list of things that I would have done differently.
I could just sit here and rattle off for literally an hour. Yeah. But those are just the first few. It's very interesting too. The foot one is so interesting because it also engages him. Like, it does so many more things than the first thing that you think of. It rolls his pelvis up, of course, because he has to lift, roll his bum off the ground to grab his feet. But it's even the engagement of it, the laughter of it, which of course goes right back to one of the other essentials of enthusiasm.
And his eyes tracking too.
Eyes track it. There's like a million things that can come from him just noticing his toes.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that when and if he does stand, he will be more engaged in a full weight bear because he has all 5 toes mapped in his brain versus just the side of his foot or, so. Yeah.
Great. That's fantastic. Just a side note though, even though there's a million things that we would have done different, you have to be gentle with yourself. Like, when you know better, you do better, right?
Absolutely. We never, ever, ever allow ourselves to play the what if game.
No.
Anything with Callum, because it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not what it was.
It doesn't serve the purpose anymore,
right? It doesn't.
So move forward, and these are just such great ideas, little tips that anybody can do at home.
Anybody,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with that said, what would be the number one question you get asked by parents?
By parents.
So parents that come to you, and usually, they have an intensive several lessons over so many days. What would be the most common question that you get?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think that the questions that I get at the beginning of the intensive are very, very different than I get at the end of the intensive, even within one. Mm-hmm. The questions that I get at the beginning of intensives are so when will my child walk? So when will my child speak? So when will, and we learned this from Anat, that, and I will always remember this. I don't know what day of training she said it, but the promise that, well, your child will probably do this, when they're 3. We have no idea. And no one has any idea. And this is what she said that I found really interesting. I remember she said, and I hope I'm quoting her correctly, but she said, if anybody promises, any doctor, any therapist, anybody promises you that your child will do fill in the blank by a certain date, I remember her saying, just turn and run.
Walk away. I
Turn
remember
and
that
just
too.
get out of the room. And it's totally true. Nobody, because we don't know what the child is going to do with the work. So we can't state anything. So it would be more kind of when will, what's gonna happen, what's to be for my child when they first start. And I find quite quickly a more intelligent and a kinder kinder questions come up by the end of it.
Yeah.
Because they're more educated and they realize that is crazy. No one knows when anyone's going to do anything. So they'll say things like, what should I notice? What should I be looking for after an intensive? And in fact, I had the grandfather of the little boy that I just did last week. I saw him this morning, and he said, I noticed today that, or yet last night, I think he said, I noticed that he's looking at me with engagement. I know. I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. But he said, he's looking at me. He's not looking through me or looking away, or he's looking at me with engagement. And he said, is that something that like could have come from, and so I was like, yes. And he came up with it too. Like he just said, it's not a small thing. It was such a heart thing for me to have my grandchild look at me and engage with me. And because he said, he started to say, it might be a small, and I was like, bloop, and he was like, no, you're right. It's the biggest thing in the world. Like if he can engage with humans around him, that's ginormous. That's, in my world, that's bigger than walking. That's participating with others. It's communicating with our fellow members of this planet. So, I mean, it's huge. So I would say the questions get more defined. They get more, for lack of a better word, a little more reasonable in request. Again, flexible goal, right back to Anat's is one of her 9 essentials. And so the questions get clearer, they get more precise, and they get kinder on the child as the intensives. And of course, if they have more and more and more intensives, they get even more fundamentally brilliant, the questions. And it's great. And that's one intensive. And he was only there for like a few minutes of one of the lessons. So he's reading the book. So
grandparents reading books.
Grandparent. They do a lot of direct care for him. So I just really said, it's if they're going to be direct caregivers of this child, they have to be on board, and they have to have the same info as the mom and the dad, because they get him for 48 hours at a time. So it has to stay consistent, just for even pure happiness for the child. We all know that children love regulatory and consistency, and so it's great that they're on board and that they're willing to learn as well.
It takes a community, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, it takes
to raise our kids.
To raise our children. Literally, it takes a community. And I hate to say this, but it's also so wonderful when the more practitioners I have as friends, because they're the ones that are going to engage with Callum. And so again, the consistency is like, the person wanders in and you wander in and spend 5 minutes with him in even the lobby of Move Therapies at my center. And it's like, I know he's getting the right input immediately.
Yeah. Okay. So that was great stuff. Leanne, thank you for sharing. No, that's fantastic. We'll wrap it up now, but it's given me lots of ideas that we can come back to, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
I think we really need to talk about a change is a change. Is a change.
You betcha.
Yes.
Is a change.
And then we'll also talk about something from the beginning. Anyway,
you'll look through it.
So I wanted to thank you very much for coming on, Leanne. Your center again, Leanne Scott, is in Asturias, BC, and your website is...
Well, the clinic is called, the center is called Move Therapies. And so the website, sorry, I'm swiping my screen because a whole bunch of things is coming across your face. Can't take it. The website, my website is www.movetherapy.com. MindFullMovetherapies.com, and therapies is spelled with an IES. It's plural.
Okay.
MovethTherapy.com.
And I'll link it below in the comments, business
Excellent.
kind of stuff too. And yeah, anything else you want to say? Closing out. I sure appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, I think that this is, the only thing I'd like to say is it's a brilliant thing what you're doing, and I'm so thrilled that we're sort of on the same page. That we just finished talking about doing this a couple of days ago. My husband and I, who by the way is taking the training, just finished segment 1 of basic.
So I should have him on soon as a student going through the training, which would be very interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely. He'd have lots to say too.
He would, because he's had a unique, perspective on like watching you go through it, watching Callum change, and then him making the big decision to do it as well, right? So.
It's huge, huge.
Yeah.
So you can see our level of love for this therapy that we're, that both partners are going for broke and taking the full training. Yeah.
Well, it's changing the world, right? Our kids have brought a passion to us, and there's no stopping us.
I was a tap dancer
before.
And now I'm a NeuroMovement practitioner. I mean, it changes. I mean, that's what these kids do. They change, they make the big choices bigger, and this whole small stuff in the world, they just all that stuff goes to the wind, and they show the true colors of how we're supposed to be and stuff, and make us the people we're supposed to be. I never dreamt in a gazillion years I would ever be working with special needs children or people with neurological illnesses. I mean, it's just no, I was a geologist, sworn never to talk to people again, but here I am. And here you are making websites to talk to the world. I mean,
yay!
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Okay, so lots of love to Callie.
Love you too. Love to Sarah.
And we'll see you on the big bad internet.
Excellent. I can hardly wait.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah, we'll see you.